What is going on, YouTube people? Today, I feel like we talk about this a lot. You have got to protect yourself when you are buying larger cards. You really have to go full CSI Las Vegas on these things. You got to call Gil Grissom, get him in there, do the full forensic breakdown because we're just kind of seeing this nonsense go on more and more. This circulated around. We're going to talk about two different cards, and I'm just going to use these as examples of, because I'm sure this happens all the time and it just slips through the cracks, or we don't know about it, or the internet detectives don't catch it. Both these examples, one is a very well-known card on the channel, but both these have been floating around on the interwebs the last week or so. I'm just a little late getting to them. First up, Victor Blue Ice 2023 Prism. This is serial numbered out of 150, I believe. This is 60 out of 150. This sold back in July for just under $2,000. You can see the sale price right here. Just under 2K, and you can clearly see PSA 6. I pulled up the certification number. This cert is still live. Here it is right here. And we can see on the back, it's out of 125. 60 out of 125. Now, quick glance, I don't see anything super crazy that would cause the 6, but a lot of times 6s on Ultra Modern usually mean something with the surface, potentially. A ding, a crease, something you can't see. That's what I have found in my experience. And I do think, and we'll get to this in a second, that the 6 is probably a fair-ish grade. You can see a little something here, but I don't really know what that is, if it's just dust on the scanner or whatever. But regardless, this went for about $2,000, 60 out of 125. Here we have it here. This ended back in September, $3,200. Ooh, nice sale for a raw. $3,200 for a raw. Sold through a consigner. 2023 Prism Blue Ice. What do we have here? 60 out of 125. And there you could see the serial number. And once again, I glanced at this. Maybe that left edge is a little rough right there. It's hard to tell. Yeah, maybe that edge is a little jacked up and that corner on that side. Tricky to tell on the raw photos. Now, before, did DC Sports disclose? One, I don't know that DC Sports knew that this was a PSA 6. They probably didn't. But the reason why I think the 6 is a semi-accurate grade, condition, excellent. And when you click on excellent, has clear visible signs of wear. Flaws may include surface scuffing, fuzzy corners, moderate edge chipping. So they did not describe this card as mint near mint, which makes me believe that they also saw whatever was going on with this card that probably led it to be a 6. Now, once again, the buyer, whoever bought this for $3,200, could clearly see that this was in excellent condition. The scans on the photos are whatever. They're not fantastic. You can't even really see the top corner on the back of this card because it's scanned a little bit crooked, but they marked it as excellent. So, did DC Sports try to pull a fast one here? I don't think so, because how would they potentially know? I don't know that we expect consigners to research every individual card that goes up for sale with them. But regardless, if you did a little bit of homework, if you were bidding on this card, you could have potentially found this. Now, this only works with serial numbered cards, but really anymore, if you're buying a serial numbered card, even if it's graded a 9.5 or a 10, you almost gotta look it up and do a little bit of dig and do a quick search, especially if you're spending a couple grand. Take a couple minutes, walk away from a table at a card show. Just do a couple quick, do Terapeak, do an eBay search, maybe look it up on Blowout, whatever, but take a couple minutes and just double check to make sure everything's on the up and up. And like I said, I don't know now, did the consigner, the person that consigned it to DC Sports 87, did they do a shady business practice by cracking it out of a PSA 6 and selling it as raw? I mean, it was disclosed that the card was in excellent condition. It didn't call out the specific flaws, but if they mark it as excellent, I don't know, does that protect you? Does that cover you? That you don't need to then list each individual flaw when it goes through eBay authenticity guarantee because it's marked as excellent? I don't know. But like I said, I don't necessarily put any blame on DC here. And like I said, on the seller's standpoint, they technically disclosed that this card had issues. Tricky. Here's the next one. Remember this guy, everybody's favorite card, the Luka Red. We're gonna tell a story in photos here. This is how this card started. It was graded a while ago in a PSA 9. Nice, clean, bold auto. It was cracked out. There it is, once again, with its nice, clean, bold auto. It got regraded by ACA Collectibles. Bang! PSA 10. But, oh wait, what happened? Wait, the auto was nice and bold and clean. What happened here? Uh-oh. This got flagged, caught the attention of PSA on social, and this card, because when he did this reveal and posted the bang, was still at PSA. PSA looked at the card again and updated it to N5 altered stock. That means when they sent it back to him, it was not holdered. It would have just been in a card saver with the N5 label printout. So I did a video on this, did multiple posts on this. Fast forward about a week later. Look familiar. This is Suns Card 24 on Instagram. Posting this. He actually had, I think I have this backwards. Yeah, I went in this order. Sick mail day today. And he's got, the Luka and with the jacked up auto. And then a couple story slides later, we have the for sale 3150 quoting last PSA 9 did 3,500, implying that you were getting a steal of a deal on this one, at least in theory. That's how I take that. When you're quoting the PSA 9 price and you're undercutting that, clearly you're aware of what's going on. Like, you're presenting the card as, oh, this is a steal if I'm letting you have it at 3,150. So I understand that he had some back and forth with some people on Twitter. I did not look up the screenshots for that, but it did not look great for Suns Cards 24. I actually reached out to him directly just to kind of get a vibe check on, were you aware of the backstory on this card? And this is, I think this one is definitely on the shady side. When he purchased this, the vibe that I got in conversations with him were he knew that the card was cleaned. He had saw the social stuff about it. He knew the history of the card. That's where the problem on this one comes in, because we don't have the disclosure on the history of the card, and it seems pretty clear that the person buying this card knew the history of the card. So in my mind, this particular card is radioactive. This basically has like a wanted poster on it. Now, I will share, it's not my style to get into someone's DMs and get them to say something inflammatory and then do a big, hit piece video on it. But in our back, and we had a very cordial conversation. Like I said, I know that he blew up at some people in DMs. We went back and forth. Conversation was perfectly fine. No, no yelling, no screaming. We discussed it like two adults. But he did ask me to share one specific thing if I do a video on it. So I clipped this out. If you're posting in your video, I want you to show this next message. I bought the card because I believe it is not altered. Cleaning is not altering, in my opinion. If it is, why does Kurt stay in business? So that is the buyer of this card's take. So in his mind, it is not altered. My basic response to him was, that's all well and good. You can think whatever you want. But in the number one grading company in the hobby's opinion, this card is now flagged as altered. And though, to be fair to him, a decent chunk of people in the sports card world probably agree with him. I've done plenty of conversations around this over the years of, is this card, is card cleaning altering or not? Because, certain things go in comic books that don't go in cards and so on and so forth. We don't need to rehash those whole conversations. But there is definitely a subset of people that do not believe that some level of card cleaning is altering. So some people are going to agree with his statement. The problem is the grading companies don't agree, and a lot of the people in the sports card world do not agree. And if you're trying to pass this off that everything is fine with the card, someone buys it and then they send it off to PSA, and I have to imagine this serial number is flagged in PSA's database, that if it comes into the doors, it's immediately going to be flagged as N5 altered and get sent back. So now you have a pissed off buyer on your hands, and you knew the history of this card before you sold it. That is wrong, in my opinion. Very wrong. And I would not be surprised. This particular card has gotten a lot of pub. And this is giving Beckett and the other grading companies a lot of credit. SGC probably for sure, I'm going to guess, would have this flag, maybe even CGC. And, let's, for lack of a better, give Beckett a little bit of credit and say they would too. This card has a lot of heat on it. If I am a competing grading company, if I am Beckett, SGC, or CGC, the last thing that I want is this card popping up in a social media post in MySlab with a gem mint, PS or Beckett 9, Beckett 9.5, CGC 10, SGC 9.5, whatever the case might be. No grading company is going to want this particular card to pop up in their holder. So if they're smart, whatever database they have of the major grading companies, this card should be flagged in all of them. Because if this pops up in a Beckett slab and a BGS 9.5, whatever that would be, a 6 auto, it's going to get roasted the second that thing appears. So I'm hoping the grading companies are smart enough to flag this thing, even though it hasn't been through their doors yet, that this card is at least potentially altered. They could take their own crack at it and take a look at it. But I wouldn't, if I was running one of those companies, that's the last thing I would want is this card showing up in my database. So here's where you get, like I said, trying to pass off a radioactive card as if nothing is wrong when you know the card was cleaned, but because you don't believe it was clean, you think everything's fine. That's where the problem ultimately lies. And it's a bad look on the seller because there's so much information out about this particular card. So at least disclose whatever it is, card potentially cleaned. Maybe he doesn't know exactly what happened to it, whatever the case might be. But I wouldn't be surprised if this showed up in a, does it go into an authentic holder maybe? Don't know. But this card is 100% toxic. So make sure you're doing your homework on this stuff before you buy, and don't be a shady seller. Even if you believe card cleaning is perfectly fine, enough people believe that it's not, that you shouldn't try to sneak one past you, because we're in the internet age. The detectives on Blowout, the detectives on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, guess what? They're smarter than 95% of the people doing shady stuff. These people get caught left, right, and center because the internet remains undefeated. I've said it 1,000 times. If you're doing stupid stuff, people are going to see it. They might not catch it right away, but it's going to blow back on you. And then what good does that do? You ruin your reputation over a couple $100, $1,000, whatever. And yes, the hobby has a short-term memory, but to some degree or another, you are going to alienate a potential buyer base by trying to pull nonsense. But my main takeaway here is, as us in the community that want to go out and buy expensive cards, if they're serial numbered, make sure you're doing your homework as best as you possibly can. No one is going to protect you except yourself. Curious for your thoughts and comments, as always, down below. We'll catch you boys and girls on the next one. Peace.